All right, everyone. Thank you. Welcome back. Definitely want to again thank Dan Waits for being here, blessing our meal. Very appreciative. We now are going to move into our benefit providers portion to wrap up the conference. Several years ago, Richard Rydell, the co-chair of the benefit providers panel, started what has turned out to be I think an excellent addition to the conference, and that is recognizing a living legend, someone who's in the industry, continues to be a stalwart, and has proved to be beneficial not only to the industry, but to horse racing as a whole. And so we've recognized some wonderful individuals through the past few years, and I'm glad to carry on this tradition here today. So the benefit providers luncheon, I definitely want to thank the Illinois HBPA, the Arizona HBPA, and Racing and Gaming Services for helping sponsor the lunch. But in this recognition today for the living legend, I also want to thank the Iowa Breeders and Owners Association for helping us put on such a great conference and being able to recognize this year's living legend, Mr. Alan Poindexter. So I'm going to turn it over to John Moss, the Executive Director of the Iowa HBPA. Have a little dialogue, a little fun, and then we'll be able to present Mr. Allen with a nice plaque in recognition of all of his service after we're done. So thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Now are we on? Here we go. Thank you. Thank you, Eric, for that introduction. As many know, Alan Poindexter has been a consummate horseman. He's been around for many a year now. Has horses all across these United States. Has sold at some of the preeminent sales all across the United States. And he happens to call Iowa one of his bases, major bases of operations. Today, I just want to have a conversation with Alan, kind of go back and forth. I'm curious, as I think many are, to learn a little bit more about Alan, how he got into the business, you know, some of his highs, some of his lows, and go from there. So with that, Alan, thank you. Much appreciated. As I said, you've been at this now for a while, but let's rewind a little bit and go back kind of clear to the beginning. How exactly did you get into horse racing? Was it a fan or something?
No, I actually,
It should.
is it working?
Yep.
Actually, I was 21 years old and I was working, I was a union pipe fitter and we'd went on strike. So I went to Helena, Arkansas to work on the Mississippi on an oil refinery. And the weekend it came and my foreman that was on the project said he was going to Oaklawn Park to the horse races. And I said, I've never been to horse races. And he said, you'll love it. So I drove from Helena, Arkansas to Springfield, Missouri and picked up my wife and then drove 5 hours back to Oaklawn to watch the horse races that weekend. And I absolutely loved it and could not get enough. And of course, being 21 years old and working as a pipe fitter, I mean, no money to buy horses, but I said, someday I'm gonna own a racehorse. So over the next few years, I got friends of mine. So there was probably 6 or 8 couples that we would all go to Oaklawn at least once or twice a year to watch the horse races. And over that time, in like 1991, I started a business called Allen's Mechanical, which we did plumbing, heating, and air conditioning. And it was very successful right off the start. So I was able to buy a horse out of the field. His name was No Tomorrow. And he had cuckleburs in his mane and tail. And I paid $10,000 for him. He probably was about a $2,000 horse. So I took that horse to Oaklawn and Scooter Dickey. I got him to be my trainer. And we run him the first time at Oaklawn for $8,000 claiming race. He went wire to wire with Pat Day aboard. So I was hooked. So then the next race, we went him in a maiden 16. I mean, not a maiden 16, a $16,000 claim. He goes wire to wire and wins again. So now I'm really hooked. So over the next few years, I was able to buy 2 or 3 or 4 horses, and mostly claiming horses. I'd claim one here or there. So that's really how I got started and had the passion for the horse racing.
Well, that's a heck of a story.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
getting your wife to go that 5 hours with you just to go to a racetrack, which
Yeah,
she
but
might
I
not have
had
been.
driven like 6 or 7 hours from Helena, Arkansas to get home to go there.
Yes, that's quite the story. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about your business side too, because I think it's important for individuals to understand. Alan is also a very accomplished businessman. He's done a lot of work across the United States. And with that, has there been any lessons, as you kind of began to go in? I know, as you said, it was very successful for you, which enabled yourself to become part of the horse racing industry. But was there any initial lessons that you might have learned that kind of transferred over to how you work?
Well,
in
no
the
more,
racing industry?
no more lessons really than what we have in life itself. We all have to have relationships, and it's about relationships and honesty and integrity and surrounding yourself with good people. It's like, even in my business, I tell my employees, I'm nothing without you. This business is not me, it's you. And that's the same way I feel in the horse business. We have to surround ourselves with good people to be successful. We can't do anything on our own. And I take very little credit for any of the successes I've had. A lot of it's luck. I've been blessed to be surrounded by good people.
Well, that is an important lesson, and I do appreciate you sharing that with us. When you kind of started to make that transition, as you said, you had 3 or 4 horses, you started to get running. When was that transition to start getting into the breeding side? What was it that kind of catapulted you? Because obviously you had the desire, you love of the animal,
Yeah,
but
and-
what brought that across?
Well, I was able to get 2 or 3, and of course, these were not graded stakes, fillies or whatever, but I was able to get 2 or 3 along the way that were from 91 to somewhere around 2000 that were stakes, small stakes winners or stakes placed, and not knowing much about breeding at the time. They probably, to someone else, that wouldn't have been something you would have bred to. But I had a friend, his name was Mark Toothaker, and he had a little farm down in Lavakia, Arkansas. So I sent him like 5 mares, and we were breeding to like, I can't even remember the stallions. Cinnamon Creek was one, I know it. And so that's how I kind of got started. And as my business was growing and stuff, I decided that I had an opportunity to buy a farm in Kentucky. There was a farm there that 140 acres in Midway. It was next to Juddmont's farm out there. So it was a good location. It had 3 houses on it, some apartments, and had everything that I thought that I would need. So I bought that farm, and I brought Mark Toothaker up to be my farm manager. And Mark, I love him to death, but he needs to be in sales. He's not a very good farm manager. He was horrible. But anyway, to make a long story short, I had that farm for 3 years, and it was a money pit. When you got 3 houses, and they would call them the air conditioning's out of this house, or the call and say the tractor burn up, one of the tractors burn up this morning, or so it was always something. So I was lucky enough that in 2008, right before the big crash, the quarter horse business was there. I found a quarter horse group that wanted to buy my farm. And I figured I'd lost about 800,000 on this farm since I had it. And but I was lucky to sell the real estate back for the loss. So I was able to escape that farm. So there was a family from Iowa, Tim and Nancy Hamlin, and they had been in the quarter horse business and had won the Grand National, the world title for halter horses. Tim is a hell of a horseman. He's never had a job. He's made his living and everything he has strictly in horses. So I started sending my mares there. And at that time, I probably had maybe 8 or 10. Well, over the years, I just kept adding mares, and Tim and Nancy kept adding land. So they had to buy 2 or 3 more farms or lease farms to where they could keep my mares. So that's how I got started really in the breeding business.
Well, that's a heck of a beginning also. I know you have quite a few horses, obviously, that you're placed down there in Springfield. How did that kind of come
Yeah,
to be
well,
incorporated?
what I started doing is rather than just breeding in Kentucky, I always raced in Iowa. So I love the people in Iowa. And at that time, now this has been 15 years ago, the Iowa breds were mostly just Iowa stallions. You'd find occasional Kentucky bred, whatever. And so I wanted to better the racing stock in Iowa. So I made a decision that I was going to start foaling out a lot of mares in Iowa, which on a typical year, somewhere between 10 and 20, 22, something like that. I've foaled out here for the last, I don't know, I've been the leading breeder here for, I think, 13 years straight.
Yes.
So,
Many.
that's really, but I also foaled in Pennsylvania, New York, Oklahoma, Arkansas. I can't, where else? Minnesota. So I've foaled babies out in multiple states. Yeah.
Well, now that we've kind of established how you got into it and so forth, let's kind of go back a little bit again. With some of those early breedings, are there any of the mares that have kind of part of your foundation now, or any that's kind of translated on?
I had like 3 or 4 foundation mares. I had a mare that I'd bought a friend of mine, Rick Cundiff. He's from Texas, and Rick and May would buy some horses to run in Oaklawn and put them in claiming races and stuff. And we bought a 2-year-old, and her name was Kid Magic. And we paid $3,000 for it, the 2-year-old sale. Well, she ended up being a foundation mare. She ended up having Miss Mischief, who was 2-time Canadian champion, which then she also had a mare that one of her daughters, Rosemont, which was an Indian Charlie, had real weight. And I think her first 3 babies sold for $1.7 million. So I've got that family. But probably the best thing I ever did as far as in the breeding business, Halliburton was having a dispersal sale. And I can't remember what year that was, maybe it was around 2008, 2009 when things were bad. So it was the July yearling sale, but they were dispersing his horses because he owed the bank, I think, some money. So they were selling these off so he could restructure. And so I bought 3 mares at that sale. I bought 2 for $8,000 and 1 for $17,000. And of those 3 mares, they all were graded stakes producers that I bought for $8,000. One's Killybegs Captain. He's standing in New York. That's one of them. Is Pataki Kid standing in Indiana. And Isotherm is also standing in Indiana. So those mares have 3 stallions now that went
on and become producers themselves
from those mares. Actually, when I bought those mares, Carrie Brogdon, who with Mark Mahal, is a good friend of mine, we partnered on a lot of horses. And she said, "Why are you buying mares?" And I said, "Because no one else is." So it made sense to me that if no one else wants them, I'll buy them.
I was gonna say, isn't that the classic sell high, buy low? That's
exactly.
If Warren Buffett.
And really, that's when I started getting a lot of mares. When 2008 came crashing down, everyone was selling. I started buying. So that's when I got a lot of mares in that
During that time frame.
2008 to 2011 period when horse business was going to crap.
Well, I think we're all aware of that period, unfortunately.
Yeah.
We're glad that you were able to turn around though
Right.
and continue, especially some of those lines, because it would be a travesty to see some of those great pregnancy lines, stop. So
Right.
bringing those horses back, continuing those great lines and continuing to get, horses out that are actually going to accomplish something on the track. That's a good accomplishment. Couple of things. One is obviously we see your horses at sale all the time, the auctions. Do you ever sell privately?
I've sold a few weanlings privately off the farm, but not maybe on one or two occasions.
Let the
Uh,
market decide then is what you're saying.
Do what?
Let the market decide.
Yeah, let the market decide.
Uh, you've touched upon some of the horses that you've bred and, we're going to touch more on some of the ones you've bred and raised yourself. And you've kind of discussed some of the others that you've had in the past. Are there any that have gotten away that you wished you may have kept and held on to?
Yeah, but probably the one that, now this isn't one that I raised, but I'd claimed a horse in New York. Her name was Shop Again for 50,000. And we bred her to like a $50,000 stallion. And then I sold her, I made notes, I can't, we sold her for 450,000 at Carrie Brogdon and I. So we made about $350,000 off that mare. Well, she went on to, her first two babies sold for $1 million. And then that whole family has been, oh my gosh, the pedigree is unbelievable. So I wish I would have maybe kept her since her babies were selling for $1 million a piece. So,
Yes. I could see how that would have helped your
Yeah.
investment. Yes, your ROI would have been substantially better.
right.
So you have bred some great horses. Can you tell us about some of your other top horses besides obviously Flat Out Speed, Chanel's Lake Easley? And I kind of want to talk about the Shashane Glory a little bit too, and you've mentioned a few. Are there any others that you really kind of come to mind that, amplify what you've been able to do as a breeder?
Well, one of my favorites is I bought a filly at Keeneland September sale for 15,000. She was a Harlan's Holiday, and I named her American Sugar. And she went to Oaklawn. I think she ran out like 300 and some thousand, and she won the Dixie Belle, and then went on to run second in the Honeybee. And I just recently, I had bad luck. Her first two babies really didn't sell that well. And or they didn't live. It was just bad luck. I bred her to Pioneer the Nile, I think a couple of years but she then sold, 3 years ago, she sold a baby, Mendelssohn, that was a high seller at Fasig-Tipton. His name is 17 Black. He's running here tonight.
Uh-huh.
And he's an Iowa bred that I sold for 300,000 and went to California. And then in the July sale this year, she sold a Boat Dior filly that I had a 12,500 stud fee in for 260,000. So she's been a blessing to me. And then other racehorses, I bought a filly for 160,000 named True Blessing. I named her True Blessing. That most I've ever paid for a horse, ever, still today. And I bought her because I wanted a good race filly, and she ran the first time at Keeneland, first time out, and she come flying at the end and ran second, and they offered me 450,000 for her. And I'm sure everyone's got these stories. And I said, no, I'm going to keep her. In her next race, she chipped an ankle and was never able to race again. So I was sad over that, but then she had a baby, I think 2 years later, that was an Iowa bred, that was by Pioneer of the Nile. And she had 2 blank dams. And I took him to Saratoga with reluctance. And this Iowa bred brought 500,000 at the Saratoga sale. So she paid me back in the long run.
I would say,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, you might have missed on the short term, but on the
Yeah,
long term. it
term,
paid
she was a
off.
blessing, a true blessing.
I do want to talk, Sean, and I don't know how much, you've been involved in this, but you have this, a very interesting story with this horse currently, Shashin Glory, another Iowa bred. It's running over in Hong Kong and is just running off the charts, it seems, winning lots of money by every measure. Superstar has won now 7 of 17 starts in Hong Kong and the equivalency of 1.8 million US. If I'm reading the charts correctly, I had to convert Hong Kong dollar to US dollar, and I believe it's 1.8 million.
Yeah, he's made 1.8 million over there. He's by More Spirit. And actually, I've got his brother or sister in the Iowa sale this year. So
Any interest? Have you had any contacts? on
yeah,
that
there's
horse?
always interest. Of course, if it's a filly, and he actually was running in the Hong Kong Triple Crown, what they have for over there, and he had ran I think second, and then he won another. Every time he runs, he wins about 300,000. I think this horse will probably in the end make 2 or 3 million at least.
I was looking at his stats a couple days ago, and I was astounded at how successful this animal is over there. But I think it just, it's behoove of us to show little old Iowa is even having an international impact, even over there in Hong Kong. It's just it's amazing how well your breeding operation, your quality, your dedication to increasing the quality of the animal. It's being
Yeah,
bred
I
around the
actually
state.
have one in Japan that I sold for 900,000, and he's also a graded stakes winner in Japan. Of course, I've sold several to Korea, which Korea racing's not quite as good. And then several of mine have went to England, it's really amazing when you can think, and a lot of Iowa breds too. So, I mean, it's not just
One-offs.
Kentucky breds.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that you see your progeny running all over the world. I mean, it's nice to see.
Do you have any plans to go to Hong Kong and maybe watch this horse run?
No,
Well, I thought I'd try. I thought maybe
No.
there might be a shot.
no.
All right. Well, nonetheless, I do want to talk about two horses that I'm a little bit more familiar with. That's Flat Out Speed. It was one over 364,000, won 8 of 9 starts. And then Chanel's Legacy, who earned over 413,000. Can you please talk about how you came to the decision on breeding them and why you kept both of them the race?
Well, Flat Out Speed is by a mare that I had a Street Sense mare, and she didn't make conditions of the sale. She had some vet issues, but she was beautiful. And so Tim Hamlin, my guy up there, which I partner with, said, if you'll give me half that mare, I won't charge you anything, and we'll just breed her and we'll be partners. Well, that's how that started. And so Flat Out Speed, it was another one. They said she had some kind of vet issue or something. So I bought Tim out of Flat Out Speed because he doesn't like to race. He's strict. He wants to make money, and as we know, you can't make money racing.
It's a little harder.
So that didn't make sense to him to have a racehorse. So I bought her, and she turned out to be a blessing. I don't know how good she could have been if she hadn't bowed a tendon. The only race she raced, it was after a 6 month, that she lost, was at Oaklawn. It was a 6 month layoff, and she was 3, and she was in with older fillies and mares in an allowance at Oaklawn, and she ran 5th and got beat 3 lengths maybe. It was the only race she lost in her life. But and then Chanel's Legacy was out of a mare that I call Chanel Number Mine. At the time, I had a wife that had very expensive taste. So I was buying a lot of Chanel. So I named this horse Chanel Number Mine because she was always bitching about me buying horses. And these horses probably didn't cost any more than her Chanel. So
in the aggregate, of course.
yeah, and she's been a great mare. And
And you're no longer married to that wife, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
But she won at 3. She didn't run, I think she ran in the stakes race here, not with Brad, in the very last day was her first start, and she ran third in the stakes race in her first start here. And then we took her to Oaklawn and she won the Dixie Belle. She won the Martha Washington. And one of the biggest highlights is she ran second in the fantasy. She had enough points to go to the Oaks, Kentucky Oaks, but I just really didn't think that she could get that mile in an eighth distance. So I elected to take her to Saratoga, and we ran her in the test stakes up there. And she ran like mid-pack at Saratoga in the test. And then we took her to West Virginia for West Virginia something. It was like a $500,000 stakes. And when she broke from the gate, she hit her hip on the gate and broke her pelvis coming out of the gate. And ran down the stretch three-legged with all heart, as hard as she could go with a broken hip. So I've gotten several babies out of her. In fact, I think maybe one or two is racing here. I think maybe Zatara is hers. So she was a blessing.
Well, those are, again, those are the two that I was very familiar with. I know you had a lot
Right.
of success and a lot of racing success with them. And kind of thinking of success, do you have any currently that you're really high?
I have a filly right now that's at, it's called Marisol Sugar, that broke her maiden at Oaklawn first time out. And then she recently just broke, it was a other than allowance at Ellis. And she's going to be running stakes at Ellis here in, I think it's maybe in a couple of weeks. And then I have another 2-year-old filly named Spanker Boom that broke her maiden special weight first time out. She's 2 at Churchill. And we ran her in a stakes race here that she ran third. And she's currently in Saratoga. We've got 2 stakes races, one at Monmouth Park that we've got picked out, or running in Saratoga. Then I have a filly that's out of Kid Magic. Her name's Barbie's Dream, that I RNA'd for $475 last year at the Saratoga sale. Her sister sold for $1.2 million as a broodmare prospect. So I figured that her ovaries were worth at least $500,000. So I've got her, I'm going to be pointing her 3-year-old career probably maybe late this fall. I give her some time off now. She's big, stout filly. So it looks like 2 turns. She's not going to be running 4.5, 6 furlongs. So I just wanted to give her a little more time. And I hope that she'll have a successful start to her career at Oaklawn this year. So that's the ones that I've got that I think are going to be.
Yeah,
good.
very diversified. I mean, you, as you said before, not only your sales, but you also have horses all running all across the country.
Oh yeah, I have horses in Saratoga, Ellis Park, Pennsylvania. I have horses, racehorses everywhere. Yeah.
In and of itself, that's got to be a monumental task to keep that all straight in your mind. So
yeah, there's no way I can do it. I can't remember shit anymore. I'm getting too old. But I've got a secretary that is very good with the horses. She can tell me where every horse is and I just have to ask breeding dates, who they're bred to, how much I paid for the stud fee. I have to get all that information from her.
Going back to that secrets of success, as we stated earlier, having good people surrounding
you got to have good people.
Looking more into the future a little bit, it's been reported that you're about ready to kind of start transitioning a little bit. Are you in that process now?
Well, I actually had 100 broodmares, so I need to transition a little bit. So yeah, I plan on selling the business in the next couple of years, and there's no way possible that I can. At one time, I don't know what I have right now. Andrea could tell you to the horse, but I know I had over 300. I know I probably now have 200, somewhere in there. And I've got my broodmares down to, I think I've got like 50 now, which I have like 25 Kentucky mares, which I keep in Kentucky. And then I have like 25 mares that I call my regional mares that right now, Iowa is the main place that I'm foaling out, other than New York and maybe one or two in Pennsylvania. Oh, in Indiana. I think I'm foaling out like 8 or 10 a year in Indiana now. They've got a really good breeders program on Breeders Awards, and it only makes sense. They run 9 months out of the year there.
Yeah, they got a
And
quite program.
so it's really it's really getting to be a really popular place with trainers too, because they can go there and actually be in one location for 9 months. Their breeders awards are about 20%. I sold a filly called Blue Light Special. So what they named her, because they bought her off of me for 26,000, and she's 3 now, and she's made 400,000. And she's won 2 allowances at Oaklawn. So they properly named her Kmart Blue Light Special.
Special, yes, I
Yeah.
agree. You know, we've kind of covered quite a bit of territory just now. I've kind of walked you through.
Right.
Is there anything that you wish to add, or is there something I may have missed that you want to
Well,
talk
I
about
just
our
want to
people?
add that, this is a tough business. And it's at my age, I get concerned about the horse racing is, where are we going to get future owners? The cost of everything, you can imagine what I've seen over 35 years. I mean, where you were getting your horses broke for 2-year-olds for $30 a day, and now it's 80. Where I kept my brood mares for $20 a day, now it's 50. And I know things have went up. Stud fees are enormous. These stallion farms, they bid on these stallions and they pay $20 million for them, and then or more. And so for them to make it work, they've got to stand these stallions for 40,000 or 50,000. And it's just the economics of it. I hope that and pray, because I love horse racing and I love the horse business, and I'm in every phase of the horse business I've been in. When I first went to Kentucky, the first thing I didn't have many horses. I went and bought 2 weanlings, and I paid 32,000 for one and 60,000 for one. And I sold one for 380 and the other for 450. And I thought, this is easy. I am going to make so much money picking out weanlings to yearlings. I've got those 2 checks, the checks from those sales under my desk to remind me, because it's been a long time since something like that's happened. I want young people in racing. And right now, what I'm concerned about, the young people that I see getting in racing are raised in the business through Kentucky. Their families are in the business, or Pennsylvania farms are in the business. But it's just so tough for someone like me that came from a very poor family and was able to have a dream. My family, there's 8 kids in my family. I was the oldest. My dad was just a plumber. I slept in a closet till I was 18, because 5 brothers slept in one bedroom. So to have this dream is amazing.
That says a lot, Alan. That's perseverance right there to go
It's
from
passion.
that beginning. Yes. Honestly, and I'd be remiss, Alan's also served on the Iowa HBPA board now for many years, almost 13. I think it coincides with how many years you've been leading breeders, shockingly enough. But I just really want to say thank you. I know as Iowans, we're very happy that the state has enabled you to come and participate at the level you've had, and we're exceptionally proud of everything that you've been able to accomplish. So with that, thank you very much.
Well, I don't like to say that I accomplished it, because there is behind everything was the people that I've been in touch with. When I first went to Kentucky, if it wasn't been for Windstar, Darley, Ashford, Adena Springs, these people let me breed these young mares to Go Sapper, Into Mischief, to Pioneer of the Nile, Tappet. I've bred several to all on foal shares. So what they've done is help me get these young stakes mares to some of the best stallions in Kentucky, which leads to success. So
So
it
what you're
takes
saying,
relationships.
so I should be saying congratulations on captaining your ship to getting to this point.
Well, that's, and Tim and Nancy Hamlin deserve so much for my successes in the sales rings. And between Tim and I picking matings and stuff, and he's more on physical and I'm more on nicking, which he doesn't believe in nicking. So on success. So there's a lot of people that's the trainers that I've had, the people that break my 2-year-olds, the grooms. There's a lot of people that help you be a success. I take very little credit for that. I mean, I've been very lucky to have good people that are helping me be successful.
Well, thank you, Alan. Thank you and congratulations to you and your team.
Thank you.